All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to Exposing Powerful Lies. Glad to be here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We have the super chat links in the description and in the live chat. If you have any questions for Jimbob or myself, that's how you do it. Y'all, I'm super excited to be here. Been trying to do this stream for a little while, and we had some tech issues the last time we tried to do it. So I was really, really grateful for Jimbob to give us his time and to come back on here. So without further ado, I'm going to be bringing him on, and you can find his work over on his YouTube channel, MadebyJimbob, his Instagram, MadebyJimbob, and he has a website as well, MadebyJimbob.com, where you can get his books, you can get T-shirts, you can get Bobatars, which is drawings that he does, personalized drawings that are really cool. I just got one. So everybody go and support him over there in all those different ways. And without further ado, let's bring on the cartoonist and the live streamer MadebyJimbob. Welcome, Jimbob.
Howdy, partners.
Howdy.
How's it going?
Good, man. It's good. I love the music, man.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's just
how long have you been playing?
I've been playing for guitar for probably 25 years, but I suffered a pretty crazy nerve injury to my left hand and had to relearn it all over again. So that is a part of my guitar growth.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. What happened? Was it a car accident? Or?
No, it was stupid. It was like I was mixing like a dirty martini or something, and the glass fell, and my very quick response to try to stop the glass, basically the glass broke before I went to catch it, and it basically went right through my wrist and severed my median nerve about 95%, so I had to get microscopic surgery on it and stuff, and I still to this day can't really feel these three fingers. So even when I'm playing, I just have to have faith that I'm hitting the strings. So
wow.
It's a pretty weird thing to happen.
Yeah. I have a lot of musicians in my life, friends and family. And like my buddy Gus, he played 4 or 5 hours a day practicing for years and years. So he's got, his chops are really, really well honed. And he always talks about how nervous he is about screwing up his hands, especially people that do it for a living. Like it's scary. I've actually had an injury just like that. I used to do dishwashing like when I was real young, and I was washing a glass, and they had this little metal shelf, and I brought a glass up, and it just hit on the lip of the shelf, and it shattered in my hand, but I reacted like it was dropping. So I squeezed into it. And yeah, I cut myself right here, and I couldn't feel the tips of these fingers for like a solid year straight. So that's funny. We've had similar injuries.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted to bring you on today, just kind of see where the conversation goes. But obviously, want to talk about your work as I feel bad. I don't want to call them cartoons or comics or memes. What do you call them?
Doesn't matter. I mean, they're memes. They're comics sometimes. They're cartoons sometimes. It doesn't really matter what you call them. They do something.
Yeah,
they're something.
I've been aware of your work for probably about 2.5, 3 years, and I've always really enjoyed it because you have this very good ability at finding the absurdity in the establishment narrative or in popular culture, and really highlighting it in just a few words. It's like you find those cracks and it just shows it for what it is, and that's what I've always admired about your work. And I've noticed that you started doing animation recently, so that's kind of cool. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just, in all of the things that I do in single frame, or 3-frame comics, I see them in my head like moving. So a lot of these characters come up, and I think the animation started as a some way of me expressing the impersonations that I do, because you do them in a live stream, whether it's Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson, whoever. And it
Yes.
was just for me an opportunity to be like, well, I could just animate them doing whatever I want and saying whatever I want. So there was this like immense power that suddenly was that I acquired by being able to even animate just very basic level stuff. And you realize in this internet world, it doesn't take much quality as
Right.
far as like technical quality or visual quality
Mm-hmm.
to make something that kind of penetrates the culture and people can see it. And so I pursued it and learned it. I taught myself, just based on like YouTube and a cool program called Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Character Animator. And I realized, oh wow, that's a whole other thing I can do. So I'm trying to find the best usage of it. So my recent thing that was created was Suffering Sally, which is like basically an animation short series
Yeah.
that kind of focuses on pop culture, theology, whatever this stuff is we all kind of talk about, or what I talk about, and
Yeah.
see if I can get it into like little 2-minute repetitive things. Because one thing I realized is that it's you don't have enough legs to just do impersonations and then do maybe animations of those people. They
Mm-hmm.
have to be. I realize that you have to, just like South Park or The Simpsons or anything else that kind of gains its own identity. It has to have invented characters, and that's something that was kind of missing in my animation, but also just missing in general in my work. It would just be sort of like vague characters, and I realized there's a big opportunity to create a whole like subculture narrative with characters. So I'm in the process of basically just inventing characters on the fly.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree with what you said about you don't need that high of quality to have an effective sort of joke or message. Really, it's like substance over, artistic. It doesn't have to be photorealistic
Mm-hmm.
to get the point across. I really enjoyed the one animation you did of, was it Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, like they were like stoners in a dorm room
Oh yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That was hilarious, man. That
yeah.
was really funny. You definitely have the best Jordan Peterson impression and Ben Shapiro impression out of anybody in our circle, for sure. I
Thank you.
think before you, it was Jay Dyer who had the best Jordan Peterson. But then when I
Yeah,
heard
his is
yours, I'm
pretty
like,
good. His is pretty good. I
yes,
was on his show a while back, and we kind of like, I think we may have had a short conversation back and forth, but
yeah,
I look at it like this. There's a bunch of people who can basically toast us both in those impressions, but it's not really about that. It's about like whether you can get the essence of the person.
right,
Even if the voice isn't accurate, you can actually get the mindset of the person, and that seems more fun than technically nailing a voice and the
hmm,
inflections, which is good. But it's like I see a ton of really good impersonators, but they don't dare say something with it other than
right,
just like, okay, they got a pizza. I get it.
yeah.
It's kind of funny, but
You get to
I
the heart of who they are, and you
right.
make you make fun of it in the perfect way. You know
Thank
what I
you.
mean?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
try to keep it. I started out a little bit mean. I realized starting out where you have to sort of um, uh, this is true for any mockery. There's like a way in doing it.
hmm,
Even there's even a proper, in my view, a proper Christian way to do it. And I
right,
don't know what that exactly is, but I know what it's not, if that
hmm,
makes sense. And so
sure. Yeah,
some of the
malicious trying to hurt somebody just
right,
to hurt them.
right,
Yeah,
right, right. You're trying to expose something, but also I realize that I can start to mess with the people that I'm targeting, make them likable in a way, but still exposing what they're saying is
right.
off or something like
Because
that.
it's not just these kind of people, it's not just about them, but it's about the people that listen to them and
Right.
about their followers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where it gets insidious, because just to be wrong isn't that big a deal. Like, all of us have been wrong and are wrong about different things at different times. But when you're a public figure and you're, like somebody like Jordan Peterson, who kind of sets himself up as, an intellectual who, you know is helping people,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have a lot of potential to lead people astray that way, and it's
Totally.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with pointing them out and even, poking fun. I feel like that just is par for the course. If you're doing public work, like you're opening yourself up to get poked fun at,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to be a good sport about it.
Right.
I want to keep up with the super chats, that way I don't lose them,
Sure.
because I got to do it in sort of a weird way through PayPal.
Right.
So we got $5 from Kristen. Slowboy Whiteboard, what is up, Slowboy? Thank you so much. She said, Jimbob, you're a legend for coming on the Iceman's channel. I'm one of the few proud owners of your complete set of books, and I even
Whoa.
have a Christmas tree ornament that you made. Hope you make more again this year. God bless.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll do that every year. A new ornament, but that's a rarity. There's only 750 you potentially who own all 4 volumes.
Yeah, I got a bone to pick with you on that, man. All right. I really wanted those books, man, and I didn't buy them right away, and then I realized, oh, he's never making more of like the books and all that. I mean, I'm not gonna ask why you do it, because I think obviously I know why you do it, to make it special. But man, dude, I
Well,
wish
it's
it.
also the first one. That's like during my jump off of like liberalism into the safe zone of like sort of classical liberalism, libertarianism. So
Yeah.
I'm still making funny kind of jokes about culture, but you could totally see the difference in my worldview between 1 and 4 now.
Right.
And
Right.
so, but I get it. It's just like a progressive like token along the way, and they are collectibles. So,
Right.
there's only 750 copies of Volume 1.
Right. That's crazy. Do you have any plans on maybe like way down the road in the future releasing sort of like a I don't know if you'd call that a trade paperback, or like a collection of like volumes 1 through 4 all in a book or something?
Yeah, I was talking with my wife last night because we're setting up like membership stuff on YouTube
Right.
because it's really funny. Because by the way, when this launches, the thing I'm most excited about is the emojis. The fact that I could make emojis that are tailored to our communities, and that's really fun to me. But
Are you talking? What launch are you talking about? You're talking about
on
Comfy? Or?
on no, on YouTube, just because I'm already on YouTube, but I'm gonna check out Comfy too, the
Yeah.
Andrew's little project he has.
Right.
And so yeah, the volume. So I was telling Megan that maybe in the future, because I've saved a very small, I think I have like 4 volume 1s that are just put away,
Yeah.
that Megan put away, that there'll be some special event where I have all 4, and it might be 5 at that point, in
Sure.
like a proper volume case. And so it might be possible in the future. It's just that the reserves are not really going anywhere because they have to. Now, there was a guy, I don't know his name, who bought like 25 of volume 1.
Yeah. I would imagine people would do that.
And
Right.
I don't know where he is. I might have to check up on him and see where he's at.
Yeah, he's probably just waiting for the prices to go up.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we got $5 from Jennifer Power. She said, "Keep on exposing them lies." Thank you, Jennifer. I really appreciate it. And I believe Rachel Wilson actually sent something too. I got to hop over to Venmo. All right. Rachel Wilson said, "Thanks for the epic stream. Big mom hugs to both you guys." Thank you so much, Bay's mom. She's one of my favorite people I've met in
She
this
is.
online circle.
Which is great.
She's the best, man. Let's see. And let me just check Cash App real quick before we move on. Maddie sent in $7. Said, "For tell Jimbob his PragerU parody is comedic gold."
Oh yeah, that one's brutal.
Yes, dude, PragerU, man. That was funny.
That took a while to really get to the bottom of that, because you're like, oh no, it's good, and especially as someone who's like a sort of a creative, like there was a time where I was like kind of hoping, I was still kind of just looking for my road and which path to take.
Yeah.
And so anything was an opportunity, and I was thinking, oh, maybe PragerU, or like Steven Crowder or someone, maybe
Right.
they'll discover me or something like that.
Right.
And then I realized that like I had to go in the complete opposite direction once I saw more of that, which we could probably get into if you want.
Yeah, I
But,
want to,
classical liberalism is just that's conservative ink really now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I definitely want to get into sort of your journey from, as you said, sort of the liberal worldview into where you're at now. I think a lot of us in this circle have kind of had the same experience where, when I was younger, I was very much like a leftist liberal. I was a little more extreme than most people. I was an anarchist and an eco activist and all this stupid stuff. And just slowly over time realizing, oh, I'm wrong. But the difference is that a lot of people who are in that sort of worldview don't really care about the truth. They care about being right. So they have an opinion, they have a belief, and that's what they stick to and that's what they defend. And when they see something that contradicts that, they ignore it or they push it away or whatever. And then there's a certain type of person that's like a truth seeker, where you're happy to be told wrong. You're happy to be proven wrong because you're learning something and you go with what's true, right? And
Yeah.
I definitely think that you're that kind of a person. I see that in you, watching your streams and stuff. I recently started to watch your streams. I knew about your comics like long before your YouTube stuff, and recently checking out your streams, I really appreciated the way that you sort of share your journey of grappling with different ideas. And I think you're like a true form of like an intellectual, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like you really lay out ideas and grapple with them and work through them.
What an insult, an intellectual.
Oh, I know. I mean like a
No,
true intellectual, though.
no,
You
I
know what I
get it.
mean?
No, I actually like authentically think about this stuff, and I have
Yeah.
a very rudimentary grasp on just general philosophy and logic, which I always tell my audience that's helpful to me because I can approach things like a child, and a lot of these higher level philosophy, it really does get into the weeds sometimes, and it's not
Yeah.
really approachable to people in general. It's bigger words, bigger histories, different categories, and I'm able to use really base level novice approach.
Mm-hmm.
Because, in my view, to attack a paradigm, to like look at things through a paradigm, it is actually very simple. It's not very complex. It's like, oh, what are your starting assumptions about reality and the world and metaphysics and stuff? And from there, it was very relieving to sort of discover that. I discovered all of that language and those pathways through Jay Dyer, definitely.
Yeah.
Like just like
Same.
realizing,
Same.
wow, and then I was relieved. There was a part of me that felt like this pressure that I had to gain as much knowledge as him, and I realized that's impossible. And
Yeah.
then I was like, oh, what about his approach and what he's doing? And then I realized, okay, that I don't have to do that.
Mm.
And then I got really comfortable with, oh, okay, I could just stay sort of newbie about it. I can gain some of that knowledge, but at the same time, my approach, consistent with my cartoons, is really a wider lens. It's not like
Yeah.
super high resolution stuff where I'm getting into technicalities. I'm just like, okay, you think all is matter? To me, that seems like a really easy way to like you just take their basic claim
Mm-hmm.
and then just bring it to the logical end, and that's all I really do in my cartoons anyway.
Right. Yeah, I really love the way that in just a few sentences you can really like kind of just crumble certain worldviews. There's one cartoon in the thumbnail. We can't be absolutely certain about anything. Are you certain?
Yeah,
Like that's like a beautiful way to
we
kind
hear
of
that
poke
all the
holes.
time. We
Yeah.
hear that all the time.
Yeah, and when watching, debates with Jay Dyer and stuff, you see a lot of that where people they just make these claims that are self-refuting and just on their face wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beautiful to see people that get that. And I definitely had the same sort of deal where stumbling on Jay's work really changed a lot of the ways that I thought and introduced me to a lot of new things. I was raised Christian, and then thought I knew what that was all about, and became like an atheist, liberal and all that. And when I first stumbled on his stuff, it's like I realized, oh, I know nothing about Christianity, next to nothing. Like all of this sort of high level intellectual theology and that whole side of it, I knew nothing about, you know. So it was very, very helpful to me. I really will always appreciate Jay for the work that he does. And that's actually one of the things that I first appreciated about you. And one of the things that made me go, oh, I like this guy was I remember hearing you mention something about Jay Dyer, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So he's interacting with that work. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that was probably super pivotal. I had two people influencing me. One was Owen Benjamin, who's like the really big, loud version of disruption, and
Right.
then Jay, who's the more tactical,
Right.
in-depth version of a like they're two different weapons basically, and so I'm like kind of right in the middle, which I think is perfect. I think that's the
Sure.
perfect place to be, and it wasn't like by choice or like it
Mhm.
wasn't like a method. It was just like, oh, there's something that's pulling me in this direction,
Right.
and so but those two in their own unique ways influenced the direction I went into
For
as far
sure.
as my comics and got me away from classical liberalism, libertarianism, this like right leaning. It's just right wing liberalism. I mean, that's all it really is. And so
Yeah, it's not conserving anything, you know.
no, and it permits for all sorts of things. And I do see that there are some libertarians now that are starting to grasp that there is such a thing as degeneracy that doesn't harm other people, right? It doesn't, I put that in quotes because it really does, but also harm isn't the basis of morality anyway. So,
Right.
but that view, I think they're starting to grasp it because you have this free society. Okay, so is Burning Man. So is there anything immoral happening in Burning Man? Or in San Francisco? Let's just take the most free place ever. You realize freedom itself, liberty, this concept, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is just a lingering philosophy fart from the Enlightenment that we just assume. We just go, yeah, no, freedom is good. We prefer it. But it's not good on itself because it doesn't give us our behavior.
And it's almost always used as like freedom to sin, you know?
Right?
What I mean?
Yeah,
Like
that's
gay
always.
marriage,
It's always
sodomy, and drugs.
It always goes to that route, and you start defending it because, and that's the end point. You either appeal to consent. Well, it's consent. Then you go, okay, so can there be a society, a free society that just changes consent when that begins and ends? So it can't be that, and then it can't be harm because you can basically be sinning against yourself and be in a euphoric state. So this problem is big, and it applies to all political philosophies, and it applies to all theological philosophies, and that's the way you attack all of them. You go, can they account? And this is another thing I learned from Jay, and I know obviously he didn't invent this, but he's really proliferated, is that you look at something not through one branch of philosophy, right? It's not this like myopic column. It's how is all of it tied together? How do you tie your metaphysics to your morality and your morality to your epistemology and vice versa? And it's like a braid. And that's a lot. You get a lot of freedom when you realize that that's the way you assess your own view, but also the way you attack other views. And it gives you a lot of power because the person you're interacting with, in this case, generally right now, the truther community, I believe the cancer is Gnosticism, some form of it. Even if they don't know, and even if it's not like to a nerd who studied Gnosticism when it branched off from the church, it's a general new agey version. It's like a synthesis, right?
People don't even realize that they're holding Gnostic beliefs a lot of the time.
Right. Yeah. And so that seems to be a war that I'm drawn to because it's not true. It's like simple as that. It's not like it's not like it's just fun to make fun of, because it is also, but it's also just not true, and it's incoherent. So that I think that also there's a reason that comes up with libertarianism too, because you're kind of drawing from the individual. It's esoteric. It's already in you, man. And man, you don't trust men. Don't trust men. They wrote it down in a book. An old book. And it's like.
But then on the other side of that, it's like the individual is God almost in the sort of libertarian view, like non-aggression principle, and it's all about your freedom and your will and doing what you want. Stuff.
Right.
So,
so it's fun to pick apart, and I'm getting a lot of, maybe the only thing I could maybe relate it to is like, I did go after like mainstream, like Ben Shapiro's. I got a lot of fight back from my following that I established.
You're attacking our side. Yeah, you might not be perfect, but he's one of us. It's like, he's not one of us.
I don't care. I just go, no, that's not it.
Because he says boys are boys and girls are girls. So all of a sudden,
suddenly
he's
on a meme. Yeah. So going after that, but this new age stuff, because it's so tied to this sort of general truther community, it's pretty much as big of a backlash as like attacking earlier on, like, you know, Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and all that. Not as big as denying the moon landing, but that seems to be the real.
People love to fight over that
Oh
stuff.
man, they love that. But
that and the flat Earth and all of that stuff, man. That's just like war of the truthers or war of the conspiracy guys.
There's actually something that someone wrote me today, and we're going back and forth, and he's trying to find, you know, the path and whatnot, and something also that's within the truther community is there's this fine line between seeking knowledge, right, which really ultimately should be wisdom when you think about it. But when you seek knowledge, there could be some power to pointing out lies, and you might be even righteous, right, in that pursuit of shining the light in the dark corners and showing what's there. But there's this moment where if that pursuit becomes the worship, like that's the thing you're worshiping, you're just participating in worldliness. And so
and that's what happens with a lot of the conspiracy stuff.
That's why they go Gnostic, is because if Gnosticism, if they can take the view that God's in them and what's moral is right in them, they'll start placing also what's evil outside in the world, and it's neither them or the world. It's above. It's supernatural. It's the
archons.
Yeah, exactly. It's the archons. And so this kind of position, it allows people to scapegoat, and it allows people to reject tradition. And ultimately it becomes self-refuting because, as I say on my streams probably once a day, especially if Posh comes on, is that the rejection of a tradition, if it's true, if you maintain that, it becomes a tradition. You establish a tradition of rejecting tradition, just like anarchy establishes a system that rejects rulers and then assumes rulers to keep that status quo.
Who's gonna enforce the no rulers rule?
Exactly. And so these kind of things, again, it's all branching of how I see the world, such that I can put it into cartoon language. I'm still speaking cartoon language. It's all and people are like, oh, that's a very oversimplified thing. And I go, yeah, it is, but it also is simple to me. I see it very simply in that way.
Right. Yeah, and it's also very true. You know, it's like sometimes the simplification, you do still see that out in the world. You know what I mean? These sort of simplified, broken down arguments. Well, you might have people on the very far extreme, nuanced, you know, position, and then you have kind of the slow boys that also believe that, who really do just accept it at that simplest level. But yeah, Gnosticism is very insidious. You know, the idea, like you said, of placing the evil out in the world. It's like God's creation, which he said was good, which is the beautiful world. I saw a meme recently that was a picture of like this scenic mountain and this beautiful lake, and it's like, Gnostics be like, this is evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it really is. It's from an Orthodox perspective, it's like we understand that the evil comes from within us. It's in our hearts. It's man's sin, like man's will to sin. Where the evil comes from, it's not in the world. It's not in the things. Like an alcoholic, you know, drinking, 5 bottles of wine a day. That wine isn't evil. We use that wine in liturgy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
The fact that you can't control it and you sin with it.
Totally. And then this concept that if it was evil, if you can place evil in matter, and the trend ends up being matter being human beings, then if you eliminate that matter, then suddenly you are creating a good world. And this whole notion is very satanic. It might not be satanic. I might confuse the two. Luciferian. Yeah. But the point is this concept that the new world is something that the humans can create.
Yeah.
Right. And then that the world's suddenly not fallen so long as we take some actions, and then can we just make it less fallen? And you get this again in this sort of community where they want it and almost need it to be in the here and now. And if it was, then they can scapegoat the evil as people, as things, and then they could also worship and idolize some circumstance they're in, whether it's their family doing well, the community building and everyone's doing well. It's really easy to idolize that too, and that's harder actually to deal with because it's going well, right? And so it's easier to scapegoat when things aren't going well, and go, oh, we have to fight, right? All of this, you know, all this terrible stuff going on. We
Right.
can't even name it on, on the channel on here. So, but
Yeah.
when you name all the good things, sometimes people don't realize that they're actually also, in a way, going against God if they start to put that stuff on a pedestal.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Um, I lost my thought. I had lost it. Sorry, I got distracted by all the friends up in the chat. I see your friend Posh Redneck is up in the chat right now. Said, "Who arches the archons?"
Right.
How did you get involved with him? I recently just discovered him through you and him on David Patrick
Um,
Harry's channel.
I guess he followed me. Maybe he follows Jay and all the Orthodox people. And so he probably saw some mention of me. I forgot what he said, but it was just one day he just showed up on the, cause I share my streams to my chat. Anyone can jump on, and suddenly
Yeah,
there was a giant man, or seems to be a giant man, who just said, "Hello, Jimbob."
I know, dude. His accent is like legendary, dude. He's got
Yeah.
an amazing accent.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
immediately I
jealous
was
a little
like, if he's real, he's my friend. Like,
bit.
if he's not real, I'll keep him going until it's exposed that he's just faking.
Yes.
So, as far as I know, he's very real, loving guy, brilliant dude.
He seems very smart. Yeah.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
And so that's why I almost feel like a brotherly connection with Posh, and that also that I have this like responsibility, or at least impulse, to push him outward into the world, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm doing.
So I remember what my train of thought was earlier. Yeah, I was going to say basically we see this like pattern in all of these different little truther communities, if you will, that raise up over different influencers. I hate that word, but different people who are out there speaking. Well, like you were saying, the idolization of either something like the community building or the idolization of the person themselves. You know what I mean? Which is something that was refreshing when I started to watch Jay's stuff. Is wow, here's somebody that's sort of doing the kind of content that I've seen a million times before from different people. Talking about conspiracies or showing sort of different things that are wrong in the world, but they're not putting themselves up as the idol or as the guru and stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, I see that pattern over and over again. Making idols out of human beings and building a utopia.
Right. Yeah, and some people self-anoint themselves, and maybe they're in a position of power, they almost can't help the urge. But even if they're humble, sometimes their audience makes them a statue, and
I
which
think
could
most
be
of the time.
most of the time
Yeah.
it's that way, and then
Right.
you sort of play into it, maybe, or even if you reject it. And this is why people end up being upset with people, because they make you a statue, right? And my analogy is that you make a man a statue, and you hold him in a certain light, and then if he moves, the
get
audience
mad.
goes, you're not supposed to move. I made a statue of you, and you go,
Right.
no, I moved.
That's a really good analogy. Yeah, that's definitely spot on. Yeah, the whole idea of building a utopia on the world is just silly, and it's doomed to fail. It's not going to work. Now, obviously, we can take steps to do positive things in the world to better our lives and to help people better their lives by sharing knowledge, which is what a lot of our friends are doing on here. We have friends that do debates and stuff, which does help. But then we also have friends that, like Father Deacon Ananias, who he'll give a free lecture on logic, and philosophy and stuff. And you can really help people by sharing those skills and stuff, which is why I think it's great that we have so many different people with so many different skill sets, so many different talents that are making channels and sharing their knowledge and stuff with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I really feel like the truth is, and you have to acknowledge the truth, is that the world is fallen and that you're not going to fix the world, and this is the sort of naive, sophomoric kind of yearning that people have when they're really young is like, I see the world's broken, I want to fix it, and I really feel like people need to be informed by the knowledge of Christ to know, like, you're not going to fix the world. You can fix here, and it's not even really, I mean, it is you doing it, but it's Christ. You need to be saved. You need, your heart to be transformed. The
Yeah.
world will be transformed, but not by you. You know?
No, exactly. And your heart. It's like you can transform the world and nobody's heart's transformed through God. And what do you have? You just have a world in a different particular set of circumstances, and
And it'll
that's
just
it.
go back. It'll
Right.
just go back to the way it was, because how did we get here in the first place? Through the sins of humanity.
Yeah.
Through people doing evil. Like, that's why the world's so shitty, because people do evil all the time.
Right.
You know? Yeah, I think that it's a scary thing when you start to finally realize, like, you know, you start to look inward and you start to realize all the darkness that's in your own heart and all the sinful nature that we have. It's like that's a scary thing, and it also requires a lot of work. It's a call to action to change and do different. And people, for the most part, are terrified of that or don't want to do that because it's not easy. It's not comfortable, you know, and people have that sort of inclination towards laziness, which we see a lot of these, whether they're heretics or schismatics or, you know, just people with all these crazy bill of goods that they try to sell people, you know, through YouTube or whatever. They offer them the easy road, you know, and you are God, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
we joke about that all the time. And it's like, it's so insidious because it's so nice sounding that it gets
Right.
so many people.
It is. It's nice sounding, and it's still consistent with Christianity in that it's the vulnerable part of man that wants to be God. So it's not true that
Right.
they're God, but it's what's true is that there's a part of them that wants to be.
Yeah.
And there's a, you know, in Orthodox, that there's a part of you that does want to become God in the proper way.
United or
Right.
communed with God,
Right.
which is what we're all trying to do, is commune with God, unite with God, you know, to put on Christ. Like, that's the whole sort of goal of Orthodoxy. You know, when you become baptized, you're putting on Christ, or you're supposed to, you know, literally becoming married to God. You know, the two become one, sort of deal. Yeah, and everybody has in their hearts the desire for truth. Like, God has put that in our hearts to sort of incline us towards the truth or towards God, you know? And so that's why we see almost everybody seeking truth in one way or another. You have people who really consciously are aware of it, who will call themselves truth seekers, but everybody in their own life is trying to understand what's true and what's real, because you have to know the truth in order to operate in the world. You know, if I touch the stove and I get burned and I know that's true, you know what I mean? These little basic ways. But it's the bigger questions that are really important, you know, like, does God exist? And, you know, what is right? What is wrong? And it really informs people's decisions and behaviors in the world. And I just feel like that sort of drive has been hijacked by this super scientific, super advanced method of mind control that we have with mass media. You know, it's crazy to see how effective it is, you know, with Hoof or all that.
It's like, I refer to it, I borrow from NASA and call it the guidance system, because you know, there also, by the way, in the truther community is this sort of like stigma that's attached to this idea of being a sheep, and that's wrong. Like,
right.
It's so the reason you know, you can have such massive control is because we are all sheep, and we're looking for truth. But people think truth is a thing or a description of a thing or a proposition, and it's a person.
It's Christ.
Yeah, and so you can't. That's why it's so easy to shepherd people into sort of physicalism, like the truth is over there, it's science and empiricism, and they're like, yeah, that's something I don't need faith, and I don't need to believe in a sky daddy.
Bro.
Don't be a sheep. Then you're like, oh no, you're still a sheep. You're just going into a certain meadow. You're going to a certain pen. You're still being corralled and everything. And then you get some religious people who are at least like deists, right? A base core, or they say God, or they even broadly say Christian, let's say. Some of them will be shepherded into a certain corral that might not be true, right? That still calls itself Christian. So the shepherding and the sheepness in us doesn't go away either. And so I think that's one of the reasons why it's so easy to control people, because they're seeking, like you said, the truth. They're looking for a shepherd, and there's like a desperation sometimes to attach it to a true north. People are trying to find true north, and if it's easy, like you said, some people are drawn to, well, it should be easy. If it was true, it'd be really easy, and that's not even true.
Well, it's ignoring the obvious sort of truth. Like, people are lacking something within, which is why they're seeking the truth. You know, we're fallen. We are inherently sick. You know, we have a spiritual illness, basically, this inclination towards sin, towards death. And I like the metaphor instead of sheep of children, because we are all children, like spiritual children. Even if you're 60 years old, you've only been alive 60 years, dude. Compare that with God's, you know, infinity and eternality. Like, that's nothing.
Right.
You still got the training wheels on throughout this entire life. And it's basically trying to learn how to not self-destruct in the presence of free will, in the presence of you can do anything. And there's things that feel really good but will destroy you. Can you not do that? You know, can you do what's good for the people you love by sacrificing your own desires for your own, you know, the things that you want that make you feel good? We're all children. And it's funny when somebody says, like, don't be a sheep, because it really is like a 2-year-old talking to another 2-year-old, like, don't be a 2-year-old, bro. It's like,
yeah, totally.
You know, that's the same sort of level of weight you should give that, you know. It's silly, man. But yeah, I think that people really just I totally agree. You know, people are easily led because we are all children, and that's why the church is so important. That's why it's here. You know what I mean? And I'm glad to see people who are defending that and promoting the message of Christ on the internet, because it's like it's like David and Goliath, man. You've got mass media, and then you've got, you know, the Christians, and it's amazing to see that even just such a small group of people, not us particularly, but just Christians in general, by shining Christ's light, like, it really is powerful, and it really does draw a lot of people in. Right. And it can break that sort of conditioning and that sort of misty haze that mass media has cast over people's eyes, you know.
Yeah, and even the ones against it, I always find it fun. Sometimes I'll go and troll in various ways to these, like, popularized atheist platforms and YouTube, and they're clearly they're just tapping into a zeitgeist of sorts. And what's funny is that they, you know, I always thank them. Sometimes I just say, like, you know, thanks for talking about Christ, you know, because that's what's so funny about it, right? If you were truly apathetic and clear about the truth of the matter,
you wouldn't even talk about it.
You wouldn't even be drawn to it. You'd just be like, all right, we got to talk about more science and like how the giraffe, you know, established the valve that he needs to not pass out or whatever.
How the velociraptor turned into a chicken. You know?
Totally. Yeah. But they're so passionate about it, and I always remind them, you know, not in a cutting way necessarily, but just like, yeah, think about it. You've come to realize, you know, the truth of the matter of what you don't believe. And then you're like, and then if I ask, what are you going to do about it now? And well, I'm going to spend the rest of my life writing books and trying to destroy it, to destroy something that I don't believe exists. I mean, how insane is that? That's like a liar fighting against the truth and being like, the truth doesn't exist, right?
It's because the truth is light. You know, truth, goodness, Christ, light. It is all, I think, metaphysically the same thing on a metaphysical level. The truth shines that light into people's darkness and reveals their own sin and their own inadequacies. And so just the mere existence of truth is like an attack on them, on what they believe, because they associate themselves with their ideologies, with their false beliefs. And so they can't just ignore you and just live in their truth, because it's not true. It's darkness. Their truth is darkness. And when they see light over here, they have to snuff it out.
Right. Know? Or like borrow it or something, like a vampire or something. Right. Like, yeah.
And that's what we see a lot of too, is little half truths. You know, they take one little thing that's true and it's distorted. So it is almost this vampiric sort of thing where they'll use things from Christianity and they'll take it, but they drop everything else. We even see that with like Protestantism. They take our book, but they don't take, you know, the traditions and the liturgy and everything that's around that book that makes sense of it and provides the context and actually makes it efficient and makes it work. You know? Right. So yeah, we see a lot of that for sure. I have a bunch of notes written down, but they're very much just like schizoly. Like I have like words listed: evolution, debate, gravity, space, science, world. You know, like yeah. I mean, I have some paragraphs, but like, so I've seen you grapple with different ideas and stuff, and I would like to get your opinion on some of them. So I've seen you talk about evolution, and I love the way that you can break it down in a way to make it obvious what a joke it is. And it's crazy to me, like, how silly and stupid, on its face, stupid evolution is, And yet, how many people really believe it? Like, they just accept that. That's their paradigm. That's what they believe is going on in the world. That, like, this animal turns into this animal over a long enough time period. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on there because obviously they're not just defending an unknowable process over millions of years. They're defending, again, probably similar to like the sharp libertarians, that they're defending that they're just animals. They're defending that, all these metaphysical categories are just kind of illusory things that we use to pass the time, and morality and truth are just kind of like evolutionary blips in the system or something to help us survive or whatnot. And really what they're capable of thinking and doing, not that they would do it, but that it does permit it. If that's true, suddenly there's things in the dark that they're permitted to do, so long as it doesn't hurt anyone. And so I think that's what's going on, to look at it from a spiritual context. But of course, you don't want to debate from that context. You want to debate in their framework, which Posh and I believe we did a pretty good job with. At least one half of our opponents were prepared, at least in their own view. Now, their own view is insane, so that's kind of not saying much.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting you mentioned about trying to bring humans on the level of animals. Like, that's something that we see very often. They want to sort of mix the two together and bring us down and bring animals up. And I kind of wonder why that is. Why is it they have to reject the sort of, as I think you mentioned this with David, like the divine spark of humanity. Basically, they have to sort of reject that and deny that. And so they want to, we're the same as a cockroach, or we're the same as a cow.
Yeah. Also, there's a lot more that gets there's a lot more entailed that's kind of smuggled assumptions. One, you're not made in the image of God, which probably is the most important thing for them to reject. And then this, there's no real free will. We're part of like this like mechanism, as Posh correctly calls it in their view, that it's just mechanics, right? It's just matter in motion, chemicals, flux, all of this stuff, which they really don't believe because they show up to argue. So
how could you believe it? It's so absurd. It's like where does the meaning come from? The meaning just to give you a language and just to give you the ability to debate and argue. There has to be something true. Otherwise, why are we talking? Everything's chaos. There is no life.
And evolution, the precedent that it set actually then expanded out into the universe. So they try to apply the concept of like eternality, which is really what they're after. They're trying to make the universe itself, or the multiplicity of the universe, as they try to posit, regular, like as if it's not miraculous. And so if it's you came from a fish and then a dolphin, and then a dolphin came out and was like, had crab legs for a while, and it was like,
just give it time. It's just time, bro. That's it.
With enough time, it all comes out. And then if that's the case, then they suddenly have an account for the existence of these very complex life forms that have to coexist, not only just exist, but coexist at the same time.
These people believe that if you took, the alphabet and basically jumbled it up in a computer and drew it out of a hat, like one day Shakespeare's Hamlet would pop out, and it's like, that's just never going to happen. I don't care how much time you have, because you need a consciousness, you need a designer.
Right. And that's not in the Hamlet. That's not even, they think you're talking about all of life. No, we're talking about just like 12 amino acids forming a protein. Right. Just one aspect, like one flagellum. Like, you need the Hamlet analogy to happen, right? Yeah. Just for that, right? And they're like, well, it has to be. That's what they have. It has to be this way. Like, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't matter. It just has to make sense, and that's the defense.
What is that? Where this thing that is so obviously, like, you can give so many examples of how it just falls on its face. Like, how is it that has taken such root in our culture and in our society, where that's just the axiom, that's just accepted by the smart people of the world? That's just the way it is. And if you don't believe that, you're like this crazy conspiracy theorist.
It's presuppositionalism. It's that the conclusion that they come to, which even if it's a non-conclusion, it's not yet concluded, it's given by their starting assumption that naturalism is true, that everything must be accounted for in the way we account for things in the world normally. But the joke of it is the method, right, and all of the preconditions that they need in place to come to any sort of empirical knowledge or truth. The regularity in nature needs to be there. The laws of physics, the laws of logic, these all need to be as they are, right, and regular for you to then do any kind of sort of apprehension of truth or do any science, right? But the method that they're doing, that they're praising, can't account for all of the things that they're using. And so it's pretty much, it ends there, right? Because you go, well, if this mechanism you're talking about can't account for everything that it's standing on, then what are you actually arguing for? This is why evolution, it doesn't work either way, but the only way people get hooked on it is if they grant that life in many various forms already exists. They go, oh, okay, well, let's take a giraffe population. And you're like, how did you get that? What do you mean?
Right.
Why would we start?
We're not just going to grant you that.
No, you got to grant us something. No, you don't. So this is what's
grant me
interesting.
logic. Grant me logic.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Grant me logic. Grant me meaning. Grant me math. Grant me something. And then they go, it's axiomatic. You go, okay, so you're just granting yourself axioms, and at the same point, you have to grant something else to even come up with the term axiom and what that even means. Like, show me an axiom that you came upon, right, that you discovered or whatever, that didn't require previous things that you would have to call axioms. It's like axiomatic regress. It just goes to like, okay, what's before that? What's before that? And they have to start with ad hoc preconditions, things that they just call self-evident, and this kind of stuff.
Like right and wrong. Right and wrong is self-evident. Everybody knows. We see that a lot.
Right. It's if I have to tell you why murdering is wrong. Yeah,
these psychopathic Christians need a book to tell them.
I know. And yet you just go, why is it wrong? And they were like, this is a joke. And I'm like, yeah, this is why.
That's what it is. It is a joke.
It is, and that's why transcendental arguments are so vicious. To these people, because they know the truth. They know they can't get their starting points, right? They have to take it. They're basically taking the book of reality in all of existence, and they just start at like I don't even know what it would be accurate. It'd be like they start at like halfway through the book, maybe. Maybe to be charitable, maybe they start like a third way through the book, right?
And that's what the joke of it all is that they in their hearts, they really think that like all Christians are like Ned Flanders, and they're just like sort of dumb and just naive, and they really are just that sort of sheep, not in the way that they use it, but just sort of like truly, following, which isn't actually bad in and of itself, because there are lots of people like that should be like that and that do follow. That's why we have priests. That's why a good, healthy community, and worldview is important. But like they really think that the Christian sort of idea, intellectuals, if you will, or the people that debate, they really are like naive and foolish and dumb, when their argument is what's really dumb. Their argument is what's really lacking. Like, I don't know. It's just very ironic.
And it is foolish. It is foolish, right? It's because what's the scripture? Well, there's a couple.
The fool is set in his heart.
Right, the fool is set in his heart, right. And it's like, if you really look at that, what's foolish is actually embedded in the scripture, is that the fool actually does use their heart. That's why it's foolish, because they're actually appealing to non-empiricism. Like these empiricists do have the sense of heart. They do have the sense of like intuition, something beyond, something transcendental. They actually appeal to transcendentals all the time.
Oh yeah.
And so I see that that scripture is so powerful because it perfectly describes the method also through which they're coming to this conclusion that's foolish. And it shows why it's foolish, embedded in the scripture of why it's foolish, because they're, the alternative is they use their mind. Now, if they're only just, not even mind, they're using their brain. Right. And so if their brain is all there is and chemicals are all there, that's it, right? There's no difference between a theistic view and a naturalist view. They're just effects of machinery, right? Just effects. And this is where you get them in a corner, and you don't want to, stab them to death. You just want them uncomfortable. And this is part of the thing Christians maybe have to work on, is you don't want to get excited to put someone in the ground, right? You don't want the pride and the glee of imagining them in your version of what you imagine hell to be, which like we can get into that too, like these overlapping concepts of hell, such that they're used as some sort of like pressure tool.
Yeah, everything we do in debate has to be informed by love. It has to be informed by an actual love of the person and wanting to see them, healed and forgiven and stuff. I mean, if any one of us deserves to go to hell, then we all kind of deserve to go to hell, because every single one of us has fallen short. And so just the mere wanting somebody to go to hell is anti-Christian in its own way, because it's like, the fact that God can forgive us, we're supposed to be like Christ. We're supposed to be forgiving, and true forgiveness isn't I forgive you, but God will sort them out later. True forgiveness is I forgive you, and let's move on.
Yeah, and that's something I practice. I mean, I've had a couple of there's definitely certain characters on my live stream who show up who test my and probably the chat's Christian values and virtues. Right. Now, that's not to say that sometimes you have to squash someone out, of the chat or whatever. It's just that
it's a nuanced thing that people don't really understand. It's like, I'm not saying to like let people walk on you and just always forgive them, right? You're not supposed to do that.
Right.
But
yeah. So that seems fun. That's a fun part for me, because that's opposite of what's expected also. All right. So especially someone like me who's so quick to wrath, quick to the executioner in me that just goes, okay, I'll just eliminate you in some form, or I'll just like, I'll draw a meme of you and you'll just become an eternal meme, right? Like I have this like that part of me who's like, okay, I'll be godlike now, right? And I have to fight that as well. And so
that's why I say it should be informed by love, because it's like, if what you're doing is an efficient way of pointing out their error that will lead them or the people that follow them to the truth, then that's something that's good. If it's meant just to hurt them, or as we said earlier, then it's probably not that good to do, So sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, that was it. I was just
okay.
That's something we all have to deal with.
I think that presuppositionalism, transcendental argument, it really is like our sort of the best weapon that we have, and it's what really convinced me that I was wrong about Christianity, was seeing that all these other worldviews are really lacking in the foundation. They're lacking in the justification just for right and wrong and logic and all that stuff. So I'm very grateful to have come across that. Also, I wanted to get your take on gravity. I've seen you talking about gravity recently, and I think that's another interesting sort of axiom that everybody takes for granted and never really thinks about.
The big G,
right?
It's their big G. Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes people go, "Oh, you question gravity?" They think I'm denying that there are effects in the world that are observable and repeatable, that can be mathematically described, right, and used to engineer more properly. No, I don't reject that. I reject this notion now. The modern notion is that there's such a thing as bending space-time. And that we're supposed to just incorporate this sort of synthesis of space and time, one being the absence of matter, one being a concept we use to measure changes in magnitude, that we can bundle these together and then apply them to physicality, such that they have a causal relationship to the world and they make things happen. And I simply, ask, what is, if there's a thing called space-time and you're saying it's physical, I would like to know what it's made of, such that the properties can justify the claim that it's bendable. Right. And I think it's just, most people don't realize that they're just using a sort of fancy way of describing a version of reality, a way to look through the lens of physics at the astrophysics level or whatever. But there's certainly nothing that isolates a thing called gravity as some sort of force on things. It's just, all that's happening is we all observe stuff, and then what science and physics wants to do is assume a cause, because it in their head it's reasonable to just invent a cause that must be there that's invisible that has this effect on things, because otherwise things wouldn't be moving, right? Things wouldn't move. And based on, what we see, just like if I push something, if something moves, at least from the Newtonian view, it's not insane to think something's pushing on that thing. But that doesn't mean if you don't establish what it is and how it works exactly, and what I mean by that is you actually establish it as an independent variable. You can't just make stuff up just because math describes it well, right? And so I see this modern view, the fact that they started from Newtonian, this assumption that mass attracts mass, that and that's something I've never observed. So I think that was the beginning of the end of experiment and viable hypothesis as the ultimate basis for the scientific method. Suddenly, I just simply ask, where does this happen? Where am I seeing this? Then it's not a massive assumption that giant things attract to each other from a distance with no real justification or anything. I don't even see that.
Yeah, can you give an experiment or example where that sort of mechanism happens?
Right, and
other than dropping a ball. The ball dropped, so
but that's
gravity.
It. But that's the effect, right? And so the reason I like to look at it is that is because it's very if that can sneak by and you can just assume things, then I'm not really too confused about why scientism has taken off, because once you go from these massive assumptions, right, and you're not strict with the process, like, so in order for us to know what causes scurvy, let's say, you have to isolate the X that we think is causing scurvy. But not only that, but maybe examine other potential variables that might contribute to scurvy. And so, that's how the scientific method works. You introduce and you remove and you repeat until, to some level of likelihood, you can expect a certain effect to either be there or not. And so what I always pose to the gravity people is I just go, what is gravity, first of all? Because they'll say mass attracts mass, and then I'll ask, is it also bending of space-time? And they're like, yeah, it's the same thing. And I say, okay, so show me the experiment where you isolated this said fictitious force, and you were able to introduce it and remove it. And they'll say things like, well, haven't you ever seen a bowling ball and a feather drop in a vacuum? And no, yeah, the independent variable there is air mass. You're removing air mass, and you're watching things drop at the same rate because there's nothing resisting, right? So all we're really looking at there is, things in the way, things not in the way, and so we're still just observing an effect. We don't establish what it is that pushes something or pulls something down. I'm not saying people are crazy for just trying to make assumptions about it, because it's still bizarre that things do what they do. But
well, that's
again,
the sort
how
of
far are you going to take it, though? Like, is it bizarre that gases seek equilibrium? Like, we don't like sit and go talk about laws and go, well, we have to figure out this law and what's causing it, because if you did, it wouldn't be a law. That's the other difference here. I'm more likely to accept what's called gravity as some sort of lawfulness of certain objects, but also not others. Like, helium has mass, but it goes up. And so this is law-like, right? This is law-like.
Yeah, and it is a sort of dialectic I've seen a lot where they put up, like, people who are religious or people that believe in God up against science, right? And this is a sort of very common, popular dialectic of science versus religion. But I think you're a good example, and really a lot of us are good examples of, people who believe in God who also like science. Like, you have a very scientific mind. Science is a great thing. It is, it's how we sort of discover truth, which is God. So it's our way of interacting with the world to try to learn more about God. But it is this sort of idolization of the scientific method that we see as scientism, where it's like this idol, like, this is God. The seeking God is God, right? And of course they remove God from the equation altogether, and they just see the material, which is the main problem. It's like, I've heard it described like cutting a ball to measure its bounce, sort of thing. You just miss the point.
Yeah.
You miss the point of the whole thing because you're trying to understand it without actually taking into consideration what it actually is.
Yeah,
And what
and
you're
I
trying.
don't know why they're so. I mean, because it's connected to like they in their view ignorance or like questioning the let's say special relativity, which is funny because this sort of like this new era of quantum, right? Quantum physics, it's incompatible with relativity. Yet to even state that, even though that's what's stated, right,
Mm.
is now to question like Einstein and all this stuff, and you go,
Einstein was a
isn't
freaking fruitcake,
I
though,
know
man.
he was
I almost said the other word,
he
but
was
I'm
a
trying.
weirdo, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm always confused that I'm not really confused because I see they're interacting with sort of like a religious view themselves. They think though there's an enemy of truth, right?
Right.
Because truth is empirical, and you're the enemy, and these religious people are just stopping progress.
Mm-hmm.
But
And what is
you
the progress?
right,
Like
there's
we
no
showed in
progress.
our 1K in our 1K party. Progress is the woman with the beard, walking down the street in a dress with a penis, and that's progress. That's the beautiful sort of progress that this sort of thinking has led us to, and
Yeah,
that's what they're defending.
yeah. Well, and I always think I actually try to get into it with people, and I get stay very calm, and I go, wouldn't it? How is it not like exciting for you to just simply go? What's funny is they worship Einstein, but Einstein today would still be doing weird stuff, but he probably would say, you know, it's best to question everything I just said. Like
Right.
it's best to question all the things because that's kind of like the pursuit, and that's what makes it fun. And yet you probably do have, they just don't publicize it, that there's a massive amount of people who are now trying to figure out, well, what they are trying to figure out is how to mathematically take relativity and quantum and merge it together in a uniform thing.
Yeah.
Yet all they're doing is more of the same. It's a descriptive mathematical description. It's not really based in physics like
Yeah.
the
Oh man.
reason is you can't manipulate the celestial bodies. You can't,
Yeah.
and even Copernicus knew this. He said, Copernicus said that that astronomy would never furnish a viable hypothesis, and he knew that because you can't remove and introduce things unless, and if in the event you could, right? Let's say you could build this massive space station, which I reject, and you started manipulating, you could basically offset the entire system and have it collapse if you could actually manipulate it. But that's why you can't. Astronomy can't actually provide a viable hypothesis.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. And one thing I was going to say, we could definitely get into quantum because there's just so much silliness and absurdity, involved in quantum physics. Or quantum is like this little unicorn word that they just slap in front of things to make it sound sciencey and deep. Like, you call like a microwave a quantum cooker, or a person's a quantum consciousness,
Quantum
like,
foam.
right, quantum foam, quantum entanglement.
Uh-huh.
There's so much like absurdity. They say you have to suspend logic to understand
Mm-hmm.
quantum physics.
Mm-hmm.
It's so ridiculous. But before I get into that, I wanted to say one of the things I really like about you is that you're so scrappy. You're always ready to throw down with people in comment sections and stuff. And I know that's partially why you got your Instagrams banned so many times, because you're always like scrapping with people. And back then you were definitely quicker to just be like, to say the words you shouldn't say because it's funny, because you're a very comedic person. So I admire that. I'm glad to see that your Instagram has been okay for the last few months.
It seems to be good when it's at like 6,000, and then anything above that, it just starts to fall. I mean, my peak was 115,000, and then I went after vegans, and that seemed to really get people upset.
But was it did you say a bad word, or was it really them just coming down on you?
I messed with this one, and then he posted my address, and I probably said like, I'm going to eat your dog or something like that.
Right.
But nothing crazy. I mean, I didn't say I was going to kill his dog. I said I was going to eat it.
Yeah, Jonah lived inside a whale for 3 days, or for however long. But yeah, no, I love to see how you're always willing to grapple with people and debate with them on their axioms and on these things that they really hold dear. it takes a certain level of bravery, and I've seen, you start to enter into the world of debate and stuff, and I do admire that. I try to stay out of debates, number one, because I'm a retard. I'm a slow boy. I guess I don't have the chops to really be able to get in there and debate with people. But two, I don't have the patience for it, man. I really don't, and I admire the people that do, because what I've seen so much with debates, especially nowadays, is that you've got people who are very skilled at talking and very skilled at debating, but they don't care about what's true. And it's like these like cheap little moves to try to convince the crowd, but they're not going for the truth. They're just trying to, and it's like, it really bugs me. And I just don't have the patience for that, because you're never going to convince that guy. And I know the gist of it is to convince the audience, not that guy, but it bugs me to no end that it's like, when you're debating with people in bad faith, that really
yeah,
bugs me.
I'm sure I'll hit a wall. I mean, I'm just starting, and I think it's at least what I see the opportunity, especially now with how you've described what debate looks like. I think there is an opportunity to bring a new element to it that's maybe more humor based, but not mean necessarily, but stabby, but not
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, I highlighted this comment. Mods, could you ban this guy? I don't know who this Andrew BPF dude is, but
He's just
honestly,
losing it.
yeah, he's losing it in the chat. So just time him out a little bit, and But yeah, no, I definitely admire your willingness to step into the arena, and I think people like you should do that.
Well, I'm trying to make it so that anytime I debate, I at least have Posh as like a safety net, because even if he doesn't know the answer, again, talk about swaying the audience. You just hit the play button on that voice, and it just subdues everybody. And so I'm just like, we won.
Right.
But I am debating someone this Thursday coming up on the Crucible,
Really?
on naturalism. So,
Okay.
He's like a little fancy boy philosophy major, so he has a lot of big words and categories, and he also has a British accent with a little lisp.
Oh, nice.
And
Well, he wins. He wins.
so
He's got that accent.
it's one of my most challenging things.
British
For
people
sure.
are smart, dude. If you got that accent, you're really smart.
Right.
Let's see. I'm just going through my notes. Yeah, you used to make jewelry. We didn't talk about that. I also used to make jewelry, but not like you. You were a professional. You were actually a jeweler. I was just a stupid hippie tying hemp bracelets in a Walmart parking lot and walking up to people. You want to buy my bracelets, man? Help a traveler. But so that's really cool. Do you still do that as like a hobby at all, or?
Not the moment. I had to put my my desk, my bench, into storage, and so we're still looking at expanding our living space.
Nice.
Being that we have 3 kids now, but we're in a pretty small place. Thank you. And so I'll just be patient with that. And when I get a place to actually put something up, I'll probably get back to just very custom stuff. I want to get into like family objects and like maybe like spoon making where there's like a family crest or something that means more than just cool wearable jewelry. I'm just like made it for so long, and I went to the the artsy kind, and I did the high end kind, and all the stuff you can think of. And now I'm like, well, it's either I'm going to go back to that when I have more space, or just skip to welding or something, do something on a higher scale. That's
that definitely is more. You do more good with a skill like that. I suppose it's more practical, and you can really do some good stuff with that. What is the work in your jeweler life that you're most proud of, or that's the most interesting to you, if you have one like that? I know it's a tough question.
I made my buddy Owen Benjamin a silver and copper ladle, handmade from scratch.
Wow.
Because that's part of his like rhetoric.
Ladling.
Yeah, ladling. And so
I found you from Owen. I used to listen to a lot of Owen. I didn't want to get on that subject too much, but I did. That is how I found you from him. And it's funny. It's actually like the Jay Dyer thing. Like I said, I heard you mention him, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna look more into this guy. You know what I mean? And with Owen, the reason why I stopped listening to him is because of Jay Dyer. Because I mentioned in the chat, I said, well, what do you think of Jay Dyer? And he looks at it and goes, Oh, Jay Dyer, yeah, he's pretty smart, but he's also kind of a gamma. He's also kind of a pussy or something like that. And then the whole audience like erupted in this like seething hatred for Jay Dyer. And I go, whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, I said, I'm really surprised that you guys called Jay Dyer a gamma, and he's a Christian, but like Crow 777 is like the greatest dude on earth to all you guys. I go, that's really weird to me because he's into like occultism and all this like wacky shit. And then Owen banned me for that. He said something like, "Oh, this guy's got no more masculinity left in his balls. All these dire gammas coming." So then I messaged him because me and him had talked a few times through DMs, and I'm like, he goes, "You want me to make fun of my friend or something? I'm not gonna make fun of I'm not gonna attack my friend. Crow's my friend." So I messaged him. I said, "Yo, I didn't want you to attack your friend. I just was saying I'm surprised that the audience, hates Jay Dyer but loves Crow 777." So he's like, "Okay," and he unbanned me, and that was it, and it was all good. But so I just think it's funny. I found you because you mentioned Jay Dyer, and I stopped listening to Owen because you mentioned Jay Dyer.
So. Well, this is a thing with anyone, whether it's Owen or anyone who has any sort of pull, you're dealing with multiple dynamics. One is what people say and what their takes are. Two is their kind of personality and whether or not they could mean it and then suddenly be fine. And yeah. I think knowing, at least with Owen, I know him personally, so he can change a lot of his views, and his even seemingly anger towards someone could change in like a moment, which I think that's kind of cool because he has a forgiving aspect to him. But there's that, but then there's also the wave of people, whether it's whoever's following you. Mm-hmm. When you point or swing your tail, a lot of other things happen that you might not even see happening underneath it all, right? In the chats, in the DMs, and this and that.
Yeah, the eyeballs have a big impact.
Right. And so I try not to like manage any of that for that reason. Sure. And so I just actually watch it, and then for people I know, someone like Owen, I would always talk to him first about anything. I would never do like a full out like commentary, and that's another part of this kind of like platform that people like they're drawn to it, but they almost want it like in this weird WWE sort of like in the Gladiator where there's thumbs up and thumbs down and you want to battle, and for people I know, I take more of like the biblical approach where it'd be like my own brother. Like if there was something, if there was a take that my own brother had, I wouldn't
go on the internet,
a whole stream of it. But there are some people I'm willing to sort of go after. I've been recently just kind of like making fun of Jaronism, which I think is fun to do because I know, one, I don't know him personally, but also just there's something worth attacking there for me. So I just try to use my best discretion.
Sure. Yeah, and it's a big difference when you know a person personally versus like my sort of, because I'm looking at somebody like Owen totally objectively, where it's just like, what do they say? Do I agree with this? Do I not? Do I think that they're, operating good faith or not? And I said I stopped listening to him because of the thing on Jay Dyer, but actually I stopped listening to him because of things he said about, the Holy Spirit and the church that I found detestable. I just wanted to bring that up to the crowd because I didn't want to leave that out, but we do not have to talk about that. I actually don't want to talk about that. I think it's good. You have a friend and you could be a good influence, and you could possibly, help them to see certain things or whatever. But yeah, so moving on, I wanted to talk to you, let's see, about, okay, we covered a lot of this actually. The folded like a chair joke. I don't know where that comes from, but that freaking had me dying the other day.
That's funny.
Folded like a chair.
That's funny. That's actually, for those of you special people here with us today, that's going to be the highest level of membership on my YouTube channel.
Folded like a chair.
Inaccessible, by the way, almost nearly inaccessible. Insane amount of money. And so Folded Like a Chair was Brenda, who's a character all over the internet, comes on, and Brenda, follows these terrible debate, sort of like clubhouse debate, atheist channel things where they
debate bros.
And so one of them, I forget his name, maybe like Tom Rabbit or something like that. Yeah. He like says, he tries to get this as a catchphrase. And so Brenda took it from him and tried to use it on my channel. And I was just like, mine.
Now I'm taking this.
Is mine, but I'm actually using it, but I'm doing your voice. I'm doing Brenda's low masculine voice,
Right.
folded like a chair, and now folded like a chair is ours. It's just it's ours now.
I know. I don't want to treat you like a dancing monkey, but I really want to hear you say it. Could you do the?
Folded like a chair. Folded like a chair.
I know my audience is gonna get mad at me because you haven't done any impressions.
Oh,
I had multiple people go.
The best way to get me to do impressions is to super chat exposing powerful lies and ask Jordan Peterson a question.
And actually, that's a good point. I'm sure we got some. So let me go and check what we got here.
Folded like a chair.
Dude, it's got me dying,
like
bro.
A chair.
All right, so Jack Lorenz sent $10 and he said for 2 ice face emojis. Thank you guys. Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but I work for an ice company, so people they say the Ice Man or ice or anything
it's not
to do
like,
with ice.
Hitman
Meth
or anything.
or crystal.
Yeah.
One time I was on an online dating site and this chick messaged me, said what she did for a job, and I was like, yeah, I deliver ice, and she never talked to me again. And then I stopped and I thought, she probably thought I was trying to sell her meth or something. Like I deliver ice.
Code word. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so moving over to PayPal. Let's see. Thank you again for being here, man. Really appreciate it. We got 78 people in the audience right now. That's crazy, dude. Jason Scholl, if you're in here, you super chatted yesterday. I wanted to say thank you for that. Or I should say you donated. Thomas Henderson sent $10. Didn't say anything though. Thank you so much, Thomas. And Alan McIntyre sent $5, and he also did not say anything. I'm not getting a lot of messages on
That's
here.
not actually true, you know. It's like a lot can be said with just a gesture, a monetary gesture, you know. It's like money is where value and perceived value meet, you know. It's like
Dude,
I'm falling apart here.
So, magic and witchcraft. I don't know why I wrote that down. Have you talked about occultism at all on your show? I think you must have because I wrote it.
I got interested a little bit just to see what I'm combating against. And then after buying a couple of books and seeing how absurd it is, I not only lost interest in it because it sounded so silly, but I also didn't want to just expose myself to reading a bunch of weird magic stuff. Like like Jewish old black magic, Kabbalah stuff. And I got this really crazy collectible book somehow I found online called the Cult of the Black Cube, where it's like, I think there's only like 200 something copies. I don't even know. And so I got a little bit, tunnel vision about like collecting all of this work. And I was like, well, I should probably just read the Bible and maybe get into maybe reading some of the church fathers and stuff, not reading black magic, just so I can be like, now I have the secret knowledge about the secret knowledge, right?
Yeah,
that's what's kind of funny.
So much about the special boy thing, where it's like we got the secrets and we're powerful and all that. And if you read the Bible first, then when you go to that stuff, you see it. They just took it. It's like we were talking about earlier about taking that little bit of light and vampirically sort of like distorting it and corrupting it. Like that's what it is, man.
That's probably why it's so boring, because you're and maybe it's designed to be like, oh, you want the secret knowledge, and then you start with going, I'm going to expose the secret knowledge. And I wonder how many people go from exposing the secret knowledge to then being like, well, there really is something here. And then I'm not vulnerable to that at this point, but I was just like, why would I waste my time even reading?
I say, if you interact with Orthodoxy at all, I just cannot imagine a scenario where you would like stumble across like Hermeticism or something and be like, oh, this is actually it, like I'm not saying no Orthodox person could do that, because we have a lot of like cradle Orthodox that like aren't really aware of sort of the deeper sort of intellectual metaphysical reasons for believing and stuff, and it's just a cultural thing. But anybody that's like delved into sort of debating these higher topics, like there's no way you're gonna fall for that kind of foolishness.
You see that's why paradigms are so important. Eyes to see. You need to speak with Jaren with Jarenism face to face, as opposed to making a 2-hour. Listen, eyes to see. You're probably a fellow Gnostic like he is. I didn't strawman anyone. Me and Posh looked at his response, right? And we responded directly to his words. Not my words, his words, right? And so unless you're going to give me one example of the straw man, I'm not going to listen to you at all. You just sound like an ankle biter.
Yeah, that's the first person in the chat I've seen that's kind of that's a hater. What the hell? You straw man our guy, but yeah, no. I was really into occultism for a while before I became Christian, and I mean, just endless libraries worth of boring fucking books, dude. Like that's what it is. It's just like even just one tradition like Kabbalah. There's
Yeah.
a million different kinds of Kabbalah, a million different schools. All of them contradict each other, and it's like I guess like word of mouth in these little occult circles.
Yeah.
Read this book, read that book, and it creates this sort of mystique around it, like this grimoire or this old dusty, esoteric tome and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to read these books, and it's just total nonsense. And then like every once in a while, you'll read something and be like, it has the ring of truth to it, and then
Yeah.
it becomes this sort of like Easter egg hunt where you're hunting for these little gems and these little nuggets of truth throughout all of this stuff. And then you've got the Emperor's New Clothes sort of thing to it where I don't understand this. Well, you're just not adept. You're not an adept like us. You don't get it. And when I became Christian I started to look into the theology and stuff, it was like those little gems, everything I learned, everything in there was truth. And you didn't have to go sorting through endless piles of bullshit to find it.
Right. Well, I mean, it's funny you say that because the stuff me and Posh are kind of like exposing over there at Jeranism is again, it's this version of like, I don't even know it's actual Gnosticism exactly, but it's like we have morality, right? It's ours, and I have my own senses, and everything's based on how I feel, and that's how we determine what's right and wrong in the world. And it's just a lot of these notions are so easily debunked that I'm actually surprised that they're really proliferating at that level.
Yeah. Well, I feel like with occultism there is this sort of because of Hollywood and because of the sort of like zeitgeist understanding what it is, people really want like the special powers and the special knowledge and stuff, and people like believe in that stuff so strongly that's the pull. I think is like they want to be a wizard, they want to be Gandalf.
Also I noticed this, and the only reason I felt even more comfortable like responding, because someone actually just so you guys know, someone called in to my show and asked me if I watched a recent Jeranism thing about a critique of the Old Testament God, and and he asked me my opinion about it, and I said it. Now there are other things going on that channel like remote viewing, right? Like this kind of stuff, and it's our job to actually warn people, not to send them to hell, not to judge their heart, but to warn them against this kind of dark stuff, right? And so this is your warning, Jeranism. You're messing with dark stuff,
right?
And I would invite you not to.
Yeah, Satan is the father of lies, dude. People really think that if they make some sort of deal with Satan that they're not going to be lied to. It's amazing. The whole thing is deception. You're not leaving your body. To all of you astral projector remote viewers, I'm leaving my body and I'm flying around space. No, your soul literally cannot leave your body. Your soul is part of you. You are a body, a mind, a soul, a brain. You're the whole thing. Your soul's not going to leave that body. But you're in your noose, your noetic vision, you can be deceived. You can believe that you're leaving your body. You can be deceived into believing all sorts of nonsense, but it's deception and it's lies. And the whole thing is directed towards getting you to reject Christ, getting you to embrace the devil, and to not even embrace the devil, but just to reject Christ, because that's your death.
Right.
And that's all they want is your death.
Right. Well, and it's also, I noticed that, who was that? Maybe I'm talking to Posh or David Patrick. We were talking about transhumanism in general, and I made a very vague, not even mine, but other people have seen this transhumanism trend of like trying to seek the transcendental, which is still within a Christian view. It's just an inversion, some other path toward it. It makes man, God created in man's image as opposed to vice versa. Then I started thinking, well, it's not just that, because it's not just creating general God, right? It's actually more precise, is that the ultimate transcendental outcome, right, is the merging of man and God. It's not just God. And so that even that inversion reveals a Christ-like attribute or
Mhm.
or condition, or however you'd want to categorize it. And so that insight, it was like, oh, there's actually much more to look at when we critique other views, let's say, and it's easy to go, oh, they're turning God into this, right? They're turning this into God. I mean, you could actually go deeper, and I don't know if it works every time, but it's more of an invitation, is that when you look at other views, see if they go further and get more precise with merging man as God, which would
Right.
be the pursuit of Christ, but just you as Christ.
Right.
And so I just found that interesting. And then a lot of these other, like, again, when we talk about, let's say, this big circle of truther communities that overlap in certain views, and then totally part in many views. The notion is that we're trying to seek this new knowledge, that there's knowledge that's beyond who did 9/11, right? There's knowledge beyond what the shape of the universe or any given planet is, right? And so, but this pursuit, you start to see how clearly the pursuit of that worldly knowledge becomes the goal. The world becomes the goal, and then
And that's why it says in the Bible, the wisdom of this world is foolishness, and the beginnings of true wisdom is the fear of God. You know,
right?
The wisdom of this world absolutely is foolishness, because it doesn't give you anything at the end of the day. You can sit there, you can read every book on the planet, and you can get all of this stuff. You know, I learned this this knowledge, and that helped my life in this way. But at the end of the day, you still die, and you don't take any of that with you. Everything you get from Satan in the world is it's credit. It's on credit. You know
It's the natural man's pursuit. The natural man receiveth not of the Spirit of God. And so there's nothing you can find in the world, in a tree, any information out there in the ocean, in the heavens, right, in the cosmos, that can tell you why you ought to value that knowledge anyway.
Right.
There's nothing out there in the world that gives you your ought of why you should even know it. And this is where all this nonsense comes. That's why the Gnostics need to make themselves the God, declaring the ought of this pursuit.
Yep. And I feel like most people don't even have never, like, for me anyways, I never even thought about that before I discovered this sort of circle of people talking about it, is the idea of justification and where the ought comes from and all of that. I think that's a really good point to hone in on for people. I think that's very effective.
Here, I gotta read this one.
Okay.
Bro, hey bro, you sounding like you're in a cult now. Too much trust in a book written by other occultists. Okay, yeah. I bet you're really fun on Yelp.
Right.
Bro, you're sounding like a Yelp review. You notice how you didn't really say anything? We don't know your views. We don't know. You don't know where what paradigm you're actually criticizing cults. Like, why would I even grant you that cults are wrong?
Right.
Why would I even
naturally this guy, I'm sure he's got the best worldview, totally right about everything. I'm sure
he's got it all down, and he's not, and there's nothing written in a book, by the way, right, from his view. Anything that's true is not written in a book ever.
Yes.
Right.
People love that throwing the cult thing at you. It's like, oh, you're in a cult. You're defending
a guy with ism on the last of his name, dude.
Right. And it's like, did you not hear anything we just said earlier in this stream?
Is my channel name Jimbob ism?
Right. Yeah, and I think people are just so used to seeing YouTubers trying to make cults and trying to idolize themselves or make idols of themselves, that like they just assume off the bat, which you probably should assume off the bat, that people are making little cults. But I don't know, with Christianity, I feel like it's so obviously not a cult. It can be a cult, but orthodoxy, I should say, so obviously not a cult because of its willingness to basically contend with everything else in the world. It's not this sort of isolated thing where they're afraid to debate other worldviews. They're afraid to debate, other beliefs. It's like we see all these Orthodox people out there, just like, bring it on, bring it on, because I have not seen one other worldview or one other perspective that has been able to prove us wrong. And if I had seen that, I wouldn't be Orthodox.
And this is the thing, is that this is why, I mean, anyone who watched David Patrick's recent thing with me and Posh about paradigms, it's the whole question, right? Even with the eyes to see guy or Jeranism or anything else we're trying to figure out here, The question isn't whether something or is true or not necessarily, right? Or any given thing is true. It's
Right.
through what paradigm ultimately are you establishing something is true and coherent. So it's not just like a given, like use logic and then your feelings to determine. No, you're actually assuming metaphysics, epistemology, and morality all in one view, right? And so the question is when someone goes, oh, you're in a cult, oh, you know, it's written in books. Yeah, through what lens do you have where that's suddenly something we should even value as a concern? I mean, you just assume like cults, whatever. It's like, why is being in a cult wrong? I would ask that guy.
Speaking of cults, I wanted to get your take on veganism as well, because that's something I've seen you talk a lot about. Our friend, our homie Tristana, the beautiful trans woman who is very empowered and independent. She's a strong, independent woman who don't need no man. I love Tristan Haggard. He's such a great dude, and he definitely helped me get out of the sort of vegan mindset.
The view. Yeah.
So I enjoy listening to you talk on veganism. So give us your take.
Yeah, veganism. First, I do take a somewhat of a biblical approach where I'm not judging people's choice in their food.
Yeah, you can be a vegan and be Orthodox and have nothing wrong with that. It's all about why and other things.
Right. What I see is that you ultimately, if you advocate for anything, if it's veganism or whatever, if it's not just strictly pragmatic or let's say health, maybe you could make arguments for that either way, maybe for a given person. They'll
be wrong, probably.
Yeah, it's wrong. Yeah, it's definitely wrong. But you could try to make those arguments at least, and maybe cherry pick, and maybe someone will be convinced. But you're making an ought claim. You're making a general metaphysical claim about the pursuit, like you're making a teleological statement about where we ought to take the world, right? So I think it is a worship to start. Veganism ends up being a worship of the world, and then trying to equalize animals to try to make them parallel in some ways is, in my view, demonic, in my view. But if I were to borrow their view, I would just say it's incoherent because it violates the law of identity. So any argument for veganism that's a moral argument very quickly reveals itself as an attempt to violate the law of identity. In other words, to make the argument that they make, you have to make humans and animals equal. But then if you accept that they're equal, then you have to actually diminish the humans' claim that they're equal, because we're just making sounds and just doing stuff. So obviously we're not equal. That's not to say that there aren't some vegans who actually say, no, we're not equal. That's why we have to take care of them. So they
because we're moral agents. And,
they're not, and we have the power and they don't, and so forth. But eventually it just becomes some sort of like inverted attempt to seek Eve or pre-fall world. And I think that's most places, if not all systems that reject Christianity, seek in the world some outcome that's nearly like Eve, Eden. I'm sorry, not Eve.
Sure.
That's pre-fall, right? This notion, well, we can get there. I even had some Christians refer to Eden, right? And say, dude, what do you think he made? God made the world the way it would be if we all went vegan. And I said, no, that's demonic.
That's only one part of it. That's only one part of Eden, is the fact that there's no death, right? So obviously there's no eating meat, but that's one part of a larger story that you're totally leaving out. I think with a lot of these things that we see in modern day, when we say vegan, we're talking about the vegan that all of us can think of when you hear the word, like the sort of social justice warrior type vegan that's like, out there pouring buckets of blood, fake blood on them and doing, silly sort of public displays of their piety or whatever. It's pride. They say pride is the root of all sins, and it is a sort of worshiping of themselves, at least in my interactions with many vegans. It is a sort of the worship of their own compassion. I'm so compassionate. That's a good point. I would never eat animals because but you're evil and you're bad because you do it. That's where I think the error is in this sort of elevation of themselves and of the judgment and condemnation of the other because of them eating meat, because the morality is the eating of the meat, and
Yeah.
that's like an Orthodox monastic that never eats meat. You know, he's not sinning by not eating meat, but his intent is all different than
Right. The context. It's just again this inversion of something that's partially could be true, but not like ultimately true all the time, basically. And so yeah, it's again like you said at the beginning. It's like all of these things are pursuits of truth. Like they really are. So that's where our compassion comes in, where you go, okay. They're trying to make this worldview matter, right?
Yeah.
And trying to assume this compassion, but then you're like, well, where does compassion come from, right? And are we made in God's image? Like an atheist vegan has no chance,
Right.
you know, like at all, because they can't establish dignity for the man or the animal. So, eyes to see, read the Bible, it proves itself wrong. Are we just going to read it directly? Just us? Just
I'm surprised he didn't
just
get
me?
banned already. They usually ban
Are we just
people
going to
like
read
that.
it? You have a bigger problem, eyes to see. Even if we granted you that, which we won't, right? But even if we did, you still have to present a worldview why it would matter. Why would it
Right.
matter to reject the Bible or read it or assume, or to acknowledge any sort of contradiction or paradox? Why?
Yeah.
Why? You
I
don't
mean,
have a worldview.
If he was listening at all, you know, I think he would have got that already. I don't think
Yeah.
he's really I don't think he's arguing from a point of actually wanting to know
No.
the truth. But yeah, I've interacted with a lot of vegans in my life. I was vegan for a while because I really did feel bad. You know, they show you this torture porn, really. You know, look at what they're doing to these animals. And when I didn't have that sort of grounding worldview of Christianity and Orthodoxy to inform my morality, you know, you're like out to sea, you know, blown by the winds, like whatever you feel.
Feelings,
I feel bad, so it's
Mhm.
like that must be, you know, the right way, and it's so unhealthy and it's so damaging to people. Just the average person, right? And that's kind of why I think it's used in monasticism, is because it is damaging. It is a sacrifice that you're giving up for God, and it's like asceticism, you know. But
Yeah.
these vegans really think that they're helping their bodies, and you
Yeah.
see them, they're like 90 pounds and bony and unhealthy and sickly looking, and they preach it as a health like thing. It's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah, it would
It's
be
sad.
it would be a little more consistent if they sold it as some sort of sacrifice, like
Right.
they're sacrificing their body, and
Right.
then it wouldn't be coherent, but it would come close. It would be more consistent with their view, right? Because the ultimate view is to either get rid of humans or animals or both. That's the
Right.
ultimate finish, right?
Right.
If there was a vegan Mortal Kombat character, the finish him would be a suicide.
Right. Yeah, and that kind of brings up to my mind the voluntary human extinction movement and these sort of anti-natalists, and you know, a lot of them are vegan. The people that's sort of a logical next step, right, of veganism, as at least the version that we're talking about, is anti-natalism. Is, you know, stop having babies. Mommy Earth is dying, and you know, we have to help Mommy Earth. But yeah, I think a lot of them do actually acknowledge, because a lot of the ones that debate and stuff, they lose the debate on health. So then they say, well, it doesn't matter. Health doesn't matter. And you're selfish, for you care about your health too much. Oh, my health, bro. Like, you know, the health doesn't matter. These animals are being murdered, and that's why I do it. So a lot of them do sort of bring it up as a sort of a sacrificial thing, but they have no justification for their morality. It's just whatever they say. It's whatever they think.
Why is sacrifice good? Also, what I find funny about the whole like Earth dying thing is, like, I still haven't made this meme, but it's basically someone saying the Earth is dying. You know, it's like, you know, we're killing it, and then like it pans out, and you look to the feet, and you realize that they're not even capable of managing their weeds. Like the weeds are already like, and that's really just kind of says it all for me, for that whole view, where this concept that you could annihilate the Earth in any particular way is insane.
Right. Or like overpopulation. I think it really is just another prideful thing of like, we're so strong and powerful, we could destroy the Earth, and there's too many of us, we're going to destroy Mommy Earth. Like, yeah, I mean, God's in control, people are not in control, and I don't imagine any scenario where we could destroy the world. But
That's funny. Oh, he booted himself.
sorry about that.
I was like, wow, putting me on the spot. He's like, I'm just going to let Jimbob finish this.
It's your show, Jimbob. Take it and run with it.
Do you take guests, or you're just on this platform, just brand new, using all of these systems?
Wait, I'm sorry. What's that?
I said, do you take guests?
Yeah, I have
Oh, okay.
call-in shows a lot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Our last show was a 1K stream. We had Andrew pop on and my friend Maddie. No, the reason why I popped out there is I got this new mouse, and it's got these stupid like buttons on the side of them. And I don't know who designed this, or if I'm just so dumb that I don't know how to fix it. But like if I click the wrong little side button that's easy to click, it just like it closes it out and it sends me away. So I really need to fix that for the next show, because that's a pretty stupid thing, and it's easy to do.
Yeah.
But anyways, this, God, that totally threw me off the train of thought. But the overpopulation, veganism, Mommy Earth is dying, and we have to save them. We're the savior, it's just more of this sort of self-idolization, turning us into God. You're not the savior. You're not going to save the earth. What you need to do is you need to focus on the darkness in your heart. Again, stop putting the evil outside of you and focus on the evil within you. And that will scratch that itch that all of these people are feeling, and that's why they're doing this. Like, that will scratch the itch, is if you actually focus on where the evil's coming from. And it's not in people eating steak. It's not in people hurting the cows. Like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything else you want to say on veganism before we move on?
No.
Okay, good. I think that might be everything, man. Let me just go through super chats one last time. Thank you again so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, no
We
problem.
got almost 2 hours. I know you've got a family, so we definitely want to let you get back to them. Let's see. All right, CashApp is good.
Oh, Andrew he wanted to call in. That's why I asked. I figured
okay.
there were people in the chat who might want to.
Sure. Yeah, gladly. I'm posting the call link right now, Andy. If you're bad, Andrew, I will kick you out. So just be on your best behavior.
Andrew's gonna insult me with all of the things I'm good at. He's gonna just use it as an insult.
Yeah.
Dale Rowling asked, "Please explain why Jesus never wrote anything in the Bible." I mean, why would you assume that would need to be the case? It seems to be a better question. I mean, that's like the when me and Posh debated the evolution people. Richard Spencer was like, "You tell me why whales breathe." I'm like, he's like, "Aren't you a bit confused why whales also breathe air?" And I'm like, "No, why?
No,
why?"
Because they're a whale. That's what they do. Like, God made them. And that's, Jethro, ban that Eyes to See guy. I just hate seeing his face in the chat, dude.
Well, he's also appealing to the Bible, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I'm just not interested in these people that want to debate in the live chat, and we don't need you here, man. Yeah. But yeah, Andy's a good dude. Everybody, if you want to see Jimbob do impressions, send those super chats in. I just put the link in the chat here. All y'all got to make it rain. Help us get a camera. We've done a technology fundraiser, and we've actually got everything we needed except a camera, man. I got a laptop, ring light, new microphone, new headphones. So thank you everybody who have donated and helped support this channel. It really helps. So if you want super chat questions, that's how you do it. And other than that, you can support us by liking, sharing, subscribing, and following us on Instagram, Facebook. We have a Patreon, but we have 0 patrons, so I haven't done anything over there. But if you guys want to see stuff like that, that's how you do it. It is literally the cringiest Patreon ever, though. It's pretty funny. It's all a bunch of Ewok shit. So, Andy, you better hurry up, dude, because like if you're calling in, man, where you at? Now I got to think of something to talk about until he gets here. Let me go back in my notes. Okay, science, worldviews, precept. Oh, marriage and family. That's a topic that we haven't covered. So the importance of marriage and family. We kind of touched on marriage a little bit with marriage to Christ and stuff. Well, here's Andy.
Yeah, you're really rushing me here.
Yeah, I am. Mean? That's right. That's right.
Like I'm on some kind of tight schedule.
We are. I got shit to do, Andy.
Yeah. All right. So Jimbob, I had a question for you. Why should we presuppose that we shouldn't presuppose anything?
Why should we presuppose that we shouldn't presuppose? I don't think I would say we shouldn't presuppose anything.
No.
No.
Should we presuppose anything?
I think we can't not presuppose something.
Well, don't we presuppose a God? I mean, isn't that sort of like the thing? Like we're coming from the presupposition that God exists, or no? Is
I'm
that not true?
presupposing Andrew's in a robe, and that's why we can't see him.
Right,
And
right. What is
And
this?
it's a red robe that matches the crucible red.
Or this is a deep fake of his voice, and this isn't even Andy at all.
It could be Eyes to See, who's actually
Anybody
blind.
could have clicked that link and came in, so I'm not even sure that this is Andrew, to be honest.
I don't know if we can actually not presuppose something. I just think we people can actually pretend that they don't need to presuppose God.
Hang on, never mind. That's really Andrew. I heard the beer open.
That's
definitely Andrew.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make sure that you guys knew for sure.
Yeah,
I wanted, with a code that only you would know. So it was really important to me.
So Andy, it's been what, a day, maybe not even 26, 27 hours since you've announced Comfy's launch on the 3rd of September. Have you had any sort of great attack? Are you shaking in your boots, dude? Have the attackers got to you, and now you're scared and you're going to shut the whole thing down?
While this has been a terrifying endeavor, and I've received threats from 16-year-olds globally, somehow, me and my wife, we have endeavored. We have been watching Netflix and drinking beer to get our mind off of the horrors of the Groiper apocalypse that is soon to come. So I'm very glad for your concern. It's been a terrifying time for us. It really has. But
I hope you know you've got a shoulder to cry on.
I'm going to go through.
You got a shoulder to cry on.
Yeah, I have to go through with this. It's very important.
Okay.
On September the 3rd, we are going to do the Fuck Fuentes Festival. It's going to be a big old house party. It's you're all invited. I understand if the fear of God is in you and you just feel like you can't show up, they may post evil pictures and memes of you. These are terrifically they're terrifying people, these people.
That title, I told you, I think in the chat, but with that title, Nick might show up. So you better, I don't know, you might want to reconsider the title.
My God, what would I ever do if Fuentes showed up?
Yeah.
He would debate me to and in a physical conference. That's what I really am afraid of more than any. Could you imagine how badly I would get stuffed into a locker, possibly get my head swirled in a physical confrontation with the Mexican midget of the white race? It would be one of the most terrifically horrifying events in probably my entire life.
Is he Mexican? I thought he was Sephardic.
Yeah, he's Fuentes. I mean, it is funny that he's got this sort of Latinx last name, and he's the savior of the white race. I always found that kind of.
Well, I got a joke for you guys, right? So these two Hispanic guys are arguing over what should happen with immigration. And Destiny says we should have unlimited Mexican immigrants, and Fuentes says we shouldn't have any. So I just wanted to let you know that was the cry. Okay, so it felt, bad crowd, hard crowd. Okay, if I did it in my Jordan Peterson voice, you guys would be rolling right now.
I'm sorry, dude. When you talk, I just kind of zone out. I just it's hard to so, Jethro says JD is about to roll, and I can't tell if Jay is being nice and seeing us stream and go, I'm going to wait until they're done, or if he's just taking 50 minutes to brew his coffee. It's hard to tell, but I should probably wrap this up.
Yeah. Thanks for taking my call, guys. I appreciate it. You got to work on all of that logic, Jimbob. Just trying to show everybody up with your skills.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Can I stream through YouTube or sorry, StreamYard with the new Comfy? Like, is it just the same as how the rest of them work? Like the stream key and everything? You just put it in?
The only system that we haven't tested it on is StreamYard so far.
Okay.
It's a custom RTMP server, basically.
Yeah, it should be able to host a StreamYard as well. And if it can't right away, it will be able to within a week or two. So
if it's an RTMP server, I believe all you need is just to have like that premium StreamYard
service. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, of course, everybody can stream to Comfy who wants to stream to Comfy.
How do we find Comfy?
Well, the Comfy is still behind a password.
Okay.
Tomorrow I'm going to be doing a live show from Comfy, the first live show done out to the public, and then of course Saturday we have our big launch. But I wanted to do an unrestrained trash talk for the first time in history, and I can't wait to do that. So I hope to see all of you guys there. But I understand if these 15 to 16 to 17-year-olds, if you're worried that they're going to mob your neighborhood with steel pipes and baconators from Wendy's, it's a terrifying problem.
Well, I'm just so terrified that they're gonna face dox me and everybody's gonna know what I look like. I'm terrified of that. I'm really scared.
All right, gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. Jimbob, you're up this week, aren't you, on the Crucible?
I am debating this guy Digital Gnosis on naturalism. So,
he was one of the nicest people that I ever talked to. I enjoyed speaking with him quite a bit. He was a real swell fellow, Jimbob.
Yeah, he was. Well, in text and online, I mean, he was pretty well behaved with Posh, who gave us a sort of intro. Posh gave him a clinic that I'm studying. So if you go to Digital Gnosis, one of his most recent posts, Posh shows up about an hour in and just puts the guy in a perpetual corner. And if I could do even a quarter of that on Thursday, I think I'm in the clear.
Why does he call you Frisbee Jimbob?
Oh, they found like a, there's like this meme of this Frisbee tournament guy who starts a fight with the ref and he kind of looks like me. And so the Pine Creek Doug, who's a piece of garbage, sorry, I pray for him, but, he posted it and it was like he posted it as me and people actually started believing that it was me, which I'm fine with because
it's kind of funny.
One more thing. No, it's just one more thing to piss Andrew off about that I'm good at. It's just what he's Frisbee champ too.
I'm so sick of you, Jimbob. I'm leaving. Screw you guys. I'm going home.
All right, get the fuck out of here, Andrew. That's gonna be the way that I send him off every time now. Yeah, thank you so much for being on here, brother. I don't think we got any more super chats. So if there's if you want to plug all of your stuff, take this time to do it now.
Cool. MadebyJimbob.com. You could find my recent book, Savage Memes Volume 4 there. I'm going to be launching a really fun members thing on YouTube, with really funny emojis and all sorts of funny badge names or whatever you call them. And so I'm pretty psyched about that. I don't know why it's taken that long. I didn't really know that existed, but the fact that I can use visuals that are funny, I'm pretty sold on it. So I'll be letting you guys know about that. Go follow the Crucible as well and get a notification, and keep an eye out for Thursday when I debate Nathan from Digital Gnosis on naturalism.
Yeah, if the mods can link that stream, that would be awesome. And yeah, everybody go buy that book because he's probably only going to release 750 of those ones as well.
No, these are a little more. The first book was minimal because we didn't even know what we were doing.
Right.
Post-truth booster. There is a limit on the bonuses that this gets, and by bonuses I mean stickers and a magnet and such. That's really funny, and people usually want that for memorabilia or to stick it on gas stations or whatnot. So
nice. Well, yeah, everybody be sure to go and get that book. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate your time. It was an honor to talk to you, and open invitation. Anytime you want to come back, be glad to have you on.
Awesome.
And yeah, everybody, thank you so much. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I will catch y'all on the next one. EPL signing out. Everybody have a good night and God bless. Peace.